about the balancing act, the big picture challenge, the acceleration, the urgency in order to both deliver the energy security that the world needs. And we've seen, and we still are seeing, the legacy in Europe and other places of the consequence of energy, the risk of energy security and prices not only quadrupling, dupling, quadrupling. I mean, it's been a massive warning about the consequence. And then, of course, the other half of the world that doesn't even have the luxury of energy security stress, they just don't have it. But in order to keep that balance, it's technology. And at the forefront of that, of course, is green technology. And that's the subject of the next session. Green technology, how to accelerate the adoption of new technology to achieve the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. That word again, acceleration, to keep that 1.5 degree target in place. It's all about stepping up as quickly as possible. And I'd invite our panelists to turn on their cameras and microphones as introduced. Mr. Yasser Al Obeidan, Chairman of Jawra from Saudi Arabia; Oliver Kraft, Executive Vice President, Sustainable Communities at Siemens; Haya Asir, Youth Representative at the Global Council on the SDG 13 and Senior Executive Lead at the Arab Youth Center, and our host from Microsoft of this panel, Hazem Nabi, Regional Technology Officer for Middle East and Africa. Please welcome all of you to the virtual table and invite you to turn on your cameras. Okay, I'm going to start, as we did before, with Hazem. Hazem, if you would kick us off with your opening thoughts on this session, green technology, how to accelerate the adoption of new technology. We had some mention there from Ibrahim El-Zubi within the context of ADNOC, carbon capture, sequestration, the challenge around the tackling of methane, and a number of other new technologies that they are using to accelerate their decarbonization journey and to achieve the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. We welcome your opening thoughts on how to accelerate the adoption of these new technologies.
Thank you, Sean. First, let me start by welcoming all our esteemed guests to this panel, and thank you for giving us the time and joining us today. Let me perhaps start by just sharing a little bit of an overview on what we're seeing in the technology space at large. Today, we're going, in fact, through unprecedented times. First, on the climate front of things and trying to stick to the 1.5 degrees Celsius challenge, it is a big undertaking for the planet that we need to achieve in a very limited amount of time. In fact, it's unprecedented what we need to achieve. And we believe that without having technology, it is almost impossible to achieve these targets. So technology will have to play a significant role to help us navigate towards these targets, maintain them, and sustain this for the future of the planet and the coming generations. But it's not that easy with what we're seeing around us today. We're seeing massive developments on technology almost on daily basis, whether this is with the phenomena of AI that's overtaking the theme of technology these days. AI is everywhere. So technology is evolving rapidly, and that is causing significant also pressure on organizations to really adapt very quickly, retain and develop skill sets that are able to basically continuously adopt the new technology coming through, and doing all of that in a very difficult and uncertain financial, economic world that is around, that is unprecedented. The challenges on the economical and the financial markets that we're seeing every day are extremely also difficult to predict. So the ecosystem of business trying to balance between sustainability and the impact that is desired, between the adoption of technology and the new technologies coming, and then putting all of this together to run a business that is profitable, that is meeting the demands coming from consumers to really advance on sustainability, to meet the demands coming from regulators to advance the position when it comes to some of the aspects of sustainability we talked about, whether that is emissions, whether that is recycling. In different industries, different challenges do exist. So it's a very difficult time for the planet and for every business leader today to really make the right decisions. Now, at Microsoft, we believe that technology will play a critical role, and we are trying to simplify that as much as possible in our approach, whether that is through. Sean, I think you're on mute.
I wanted just to jump in on that point, Hazem, about simplify. I think it's such a critical point. That's why I want to just, if you don't mind me interrupting you in flow there, you had mentioned the potential overwhelming nature of AI as it flows, as it comes into our immediate space, but the simplification of the tools available. Why is that so important?
But it's really important to make it widespread, to make it applicable for everybody. There's a shortage of skills, and really simplifying the tool, simplifying the technology, making it affordable, democratizing it so that it is available for every organization to benefit from it is something that is very important and the priority for Microsoft. So these are the two aspects we're really focusing on, whether it is in terms of green technology, whether it is emerging technologies like AI, whether it's sustainability technology. The Microsoft philosophy and approach that we're putting forward is really how to simplify these technologies, make them available, make them affordable in a way, and also provide opportunities for skilling and training so that everybody could really get on the bandwagon very quickly and start to make progress.
Yeah, well, that's certainly, I would imagine, music to the ears of our first guest speaker, Yasser Al-Obaid, chairman of Jawra. Yasser has been a visionary leader in the kingdom with a sort of a principal focus and expertise on connecting industries through digitization. Yasser, we welcome your opening thoughts, particularly around the acceleration of the adoption of new green technologies.
Thank you, Shane, for the opportunity, and thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to talk in this close to the heart, sustainability and green technology.
And of course, in Saudi Arabia, it's going through a massive transformation where this is at the core of it.
True. The Saudi Green Initiative is very clear that we want the entire Arab nation to become green and sustainable by Saudi investing in planting more than 10 billion trees in the coming 7 years by 2030. And this is a great initiative. How can technology be part of this? And how can everyone, whether on individual, corporate, or government, be part of this? That was the question that was running in our mind for the past 2 years. And what we did and what we thought is, especially in developing countries that are in the growth stage, we cannot go and say, no, you have to be green from day one. You have to do certain products or certain ratio of carbon per capita, because they are in the development stage. But the main concern that we have is how can we make everyone on individual, corporate, and government be aware of their carbon emissions and their carbon protections. So what we did for the past 1 year is developing a platform. We called it the Green Saudi Exchange, where basically you go there and you calculate on individual level, SME level, corporate, or government level, calculate your carbon emissions. And not only that, the platform, with the help of Microsoft and using Microsoft Azure, is also looking at your consumption per capita and do the averaging of it on a global level and on a Saudi level. But also it's connected to the suppliers, who are the farmers who have trees that they want, we can plant them somewhere, and also to the projects within Saudi that came in and say, for example, King Salman Park, who wants to plant 1 million trees, they can register in our platform, and we connect all these 3 parties together to say, okay, you are an offsetter, we calculate your emissions, you can offset it by planting a number of trees and donating these trees, automatically and transparently connected to the supplier to deliver to the projects that are listed in our platform. With that, we created a fully transparent a green initiative using technologies, using AI to determine, and business intelligence to see where are we planting these trees, because all our technology is based on blockchain technology, where every tree is an asset protected within blockchain. A picture has been taken from there, and so the offsetter can see where exactly this tree and has been planted, and how much is this tree producing in terms of oxygen to offset their carbon emissions. And that is a great initiative, because
That's a
not,
perfect example, ultimately, of if you can measure it, you can do something about it, and that's the ultimate tool, the system to gather the data, and of course the measurement. Let's welcome our other guest speaker, of Haya Asir, a youth representative at this Global Council on Sustainable Development Goals 13 and senior project lead at the Arab Youth Center. Haya is very much at the sort of the core of where the communication and the education is in translating this to the ground in the Arab world amongst the Arab youth. Haya, your thoughts on the theme of this session, again, accelerating adoption of new green technology. Are we in enough acceleration? How do we get that moving quicker?
Thank you, Sean, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you here. My flight just landed, so hello from the other side of the planet. Yesterday, we finalized
Which is where, Haya? Where did your plane just land?
I am in Armenia, actually.
Oh, wow, lovely.
Beautiful backgrounds. Yesterday, we finalized the launch to the road to COP28, and I thought maybe take some time off after that, but I think when you're committed to a cause, there is no time off from that. But to answer your question, Sean, and in the highlight of what happened yesterday, we had a debate on with two opposing teams of youth on whether AI and technology is the ultimate sustainable solution to climate change. And we went into the debate with the conscious or unconscious understanding that, of course, the affirmative team are going to win, and like AI and technology is an ultimate solution to climate change. And to our surprise, towards the end of the debate, the judging panelists actually voted for the opposing team, and not only because they delivered a lot of facts, but because their debate is compelling. And what I'm trying to highlight here is how youth's storytelling techniques or efforts are actually very vital, and we need to capitalize on them and use them to be able to advance in when we're talking about green technology. And you mentioned something very critical here, and that is education and upskilling. And usually when we come and talk from a youth's perspective, we say, okay, this is what the youth need, this is what the youth are looking for, but I want to highlight what the youth can provide here. And other than their compelling arguments or this energy of being able to vote for a cause, if I may quote the UNICEF here, we have around 620 million youth who are between the ages of 18 to 24 who are unemployed or not in any educational program. So this is by itself a golden mine that we can either capitalize on, or it's gonna, I'm not gonna say burst in our faces, but it can cause a lot of resistance. So if we starting from understanding this great energies that we have within these youth, and how can we capitalize on them for the prosperity of the people, the planet, and profit. And if I may give an example here of my dear friend Yusuf, who learned how to fly a drone at the early age of 20. And with that sole skill, he figured that he can capitalize on this to start a startup where now he is providing a one-stop shop for companies to fly drones. He himself employs more than 100 youth who are pilots themselves. So the answer is really, we might not need to give employment opportunities in particular, but how can we invest more in education? How can we invest more in upskilling these youth and give them the tools to be able to run this by themselves?
Well, it certainly brings home the point that people, profit, and planet is a holistic, integrated space. And as we move away from the sole North Star of profit, how that holistic intersection of the three pieces comes together, I think is a perfect anecdote that you shared on your friend Haya. So thank you for that. Let's welcome Oliver Kraft, Executive Vice President, Sustainable Communities for Siemens, which of course is in itself. I welcome his sort of definition of that, but ultimately I think it's really cool that Oliver comes to us having also worked as Executive Vice President for Expo 2020, leading the project and account management activities there for a number of years. So it's a real perfect combination, because of course Siemens is also a very important part of bringing that green technology to the fore, and I'm sure would like it to be as accelerated as possible. So Oliver, your opening thoughts and sharing your views, please.
First of all, Sean, also thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you, colleagues. And before I share my thoughts on the overall topic, let me just reflect on what I've heard so far.
Please.
And I like very much what Yasser said, for example, about like the calculation of CO2 footprint. And I'm pretty sure that Hazem and I, we agree that one of the true purposes, objectives of IoT is transparency. If you have transparency, or in other words, you can create awareness and you can create commitment. That is required for sustainability, to make sustainability happen. And so technology here is in a supporting role. And if you do IoT right, then of course it helps empowering people to make smart decisions on a day-by-day basis. And that gives all of us kind of peace of mind, and we feel included. So that is, I think, a very good what you guys are doing there in Saudi Arabia. The other thing which Hazem mentioned, which I also fully support, is the topic of that digitalization actually creates, let's say, pressure and complexity, because people mostly, they think, okay, you digitalize, you have technology, they do the job for you, and everything is fine, but it's not, because with a variety of technologies entering the markets, the variety of offerings available, it's actually very, very difficult to select the ones you need. And there's one element which will help you, and that is collaboration. And that also it came across in the discussion, also what Harya mentioned in terms of also the youth working together. So that means collaboration helps us to overcome the challenges. And that helps us also when it comes to tackling the topic of sustainability, or what we call like the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit.
Yes, sir. On that point, I mean, you are working with, you have a company which owns a number of companies, and you have to obviously make them profitable as well as sustainable. We've seen, according to the Global Commission on Adaptation, that for every dollar we spend on building climate resilience, the net economic benefit can be up to $10. $2 to $10 is the measurement. But ultimately, not every green shift is profitable and scalable. And we don't want to waste a lot of time on those that cannot make that scalable journey. How do we sort of balance those two things, making the shift to green technology, but at the same token, not trying to scale or to waste too much time? Where's the balance there?
I think as highlighted by Oliver, the transparency here is a very crucial part, because transparency will not only improve the adaptation to green energy, but it will lower the cost of adaptation. So I will just give you an example today. In normal cases, for us to plant a tree, it will cost normally around $80 to $100 per mature tree. And when I say mature, is between 1.5 to 2 meters that can survive in harsh weather in Saudi Arabia. But when we start using this transparency, we figure out that we can lower that cost of having a mature tree planted in any projects, we can bring that price or cost down from an $80 to $26. And one of the reasons is we have eliminated all the middlemen within the ecosystem and the supply chain. So today the offsetter is immediately connected to the supplier, immediately connected to the project, and we don't need to have someone that would go and take on top of this higher margins and whatsoever. So that is very important for us to do the adaptation. And again, as mentioned, transparency will improve and encourage others to participate.
Oliver,
on top of this, we
ahead.
also want to do a value add. So what we did, we also connected our platform to the tax authority in Saudi Arabia. So once you donate a certain amount of trees, you receive a CSR certificate stating that you have donated this amount for this number of trees. And that amount is removed from your tax brackets. So you are benefiting not only just paying an extra cost, and this is what we look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, that companies would usually don't want to pay extra amount. They want to see benefits against it. And that's why we say, okay, the amount that you donate will be offsetted from your tax bracket as well. And
which is what we've seen was a signature component of what is now known as the IRA Act in the United States, the Inflation Reduction Act. It was all about economic incentive. I just wanted Oliver to bring you in on that point, but to say about the, we had a mention earlier about simplification by Hazem, but also I wanted to get your views on standardization, that in order for there to be acceleration, not everything can be bespoke. Right, and how important is standardization in this journey to net zero?
It's very important, Sean, and thanks for giving me that question, by the way. I think in the end it comes down, of course, to finding the right balance. Okay, you got to standardize to make it available basically for everyone, which is very important. But then, of course, it comes down to the specifics of the individual case. And why is that? Like, for example, if you think about how to turn a city into a smart city, and you mentioned Expo, my Expo engagement. And what we did is we created a blueprint for future smart cities there, and a replicable blueprint. Replicability requires standardization to a certain extent. So you have a set of use cases, whether it's air quality monitoring, whether it's monitoring of waste management, or it's electricity or water consumption monitoring. But eventually, before you even go there, it comes down to what I mentioned earlier, this collaboration. And there's a methodology very, very, very well known, and that is co-creation. So companies, for example, like Microsoft and us, like technology providers, we bring people together from different roles, responsibilities, departments, and we engage in what we call in Siemens discovery workshops. So we figure out what is it, what Yasser, for example, actually needs and wants. So try to identify the pain points. But of course, you start with a standardized set, which you already know. You have certain technologies, but you build upon that and you make it specific to the city, to the district, to the campus, or whatever the project is.
Haya, I wanted to get your thoughts on the specific to this point of acceleration, and with COP28 coming, what your expectations are and hopes are. I mean, ultimately, you mentioned a very critical point there in terms of the number of young people unemployed and the challenge and the opportunity that presents, right? It's an economic gold mine, at the same token as social challenge if it isn't managed. But where you think acceleration, where that pace, where is technology moving quick enough, and your expectations for COP28?
Thank you, Sean. So we cannot talk about this without talking about bridging the gap between education and industry. I think the colleagues on the panel already mentioned how the skill gaps is already recognized as a major bottleneck in our sector, whether it's renewable energy, resource efficiency, renovation. So the adoption.
Is that specific to this region, or would you say that's a global piece? The skills
I
gap.
would not speak on a global perspective because I don't have the facts on that.
Right.
Okay. You that when we're doing it with the research with MENA youth, we understand that this skill gap is huge. And if I may quote even the International Labour Organization, they do mention how skills are also crucial to rapidly adapt to changes. So what we're doing on the road to COP28 is we're trying to connect the dots. So we're not the experts when it comes to R&D and technology. Our private sectors and private corporates are, and we are not the experts when it comes to education. But what we're trying to do as the Arab Youth Council for Climate Change is create this platform where we understand what are the needs from the industry, and then where education and institutes are stopping at, and we're creating more of these upskilling programs where we are able to graduate youth who are able to satisfy and to serve within that. So again, back to communications and collaboration, I think connecting the dots is crucial, and not to miss this gold mine that we are talking about. So hopefully by COP28, we will be able to launch this program with a number of our universities in the region, and then a number of private sector. And maybe this is even an open call to action to for all private sectors. If you are interested in this particular initiative, we are very happy to connect on that.
Well, certainly the MEA Forum for Future Sustainability Leaders would be, we should sort of think about how we can bring those two together. But half an hour goes so very quickly, and this is only the beginning of a conversation with all of you, and we look forward to when we can have you join us again. But I do want to give Hazem an opportunity to wrap up your thoughts on this, Hazem, and particularly in that area of the idea of standardization, of scaling, that you brought the word to the table, simplification. It seems to me they're totally integrated. Not everything can be bespoke. Your closing comments, please.
Thank you, Sean. And again, thank you one more time for everybody who joined us today. I think in today's discussion, we recognize there are some very common themes, but also some very promising aspects across the region, represented across youth, across enterprises, and across emerging technologies and startups and ecosystems. I think at the center of it, we're seeing a lot of innovation happening. So innovation across every segment of the market, across every ecosystem today is driving an opportunity that is fueling the desire for technology. So whether the stories we've heard from Haya on her friends, or whether the sustainability and carbon offsets innovation coming from Saudi, Yasser shared with us, and of course the technology from Microsoft and from Siemens, Olivier mentioned as well with IoT. So all of this is today we're seeing it in common themes across the region that is really coming together to help us advance the adoption of technology, accelerate the adoption of this technology. Everybody in the ecosystem has a role to play, whether it is large enterprises or anybody honestly has a role to play to really advance the adoption of technology towards solving the planet goals that we are facing. It is really exciting to see the level of interest and the level of awareness that is happening across the entire Middle East, not only this year, but probably in the last 2 years since we started to have the COP events come to the region, with COP27 and now COP28 coming to Dubai in a few months. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of momentum, and we look forward to continue this partnership with all of you here today with us, and we welcome anybody else to join us at Microsoft to really help advance the awareness and the motion of sustainability in the region.
Perfect. Hazem, thank you so much for those closing thoughts. I think your acceleration, simplification, standardization, collaboration, whatever particular order that you want to put that in, it seems to me it captures the essence of this half-hour discussion together. Yasser Al-Obaiden, thank you so much for joining us from Saudi Arabia. Oliver Kraft, of course, with Siemens. Haya Asir in Armenia, beautiful Armenia. And of course, Hazem, thank you for wrapping it up. Really appreciate you joining us today. And as the previous session, we'll capture the most salient points in an editorial summary and share it with everybody afterwards.